Welcome to Ecologic for the month of September, a beautiful time of the year. The hurricanes have passed us by, thank goodness. There's one in the middle, but I don't know, no telling where it's going to go. Our guest tonight is Chris Tauzin on the St. Martin Council and another member of the St. Martin Council, Cory Melancon. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And kind of our subject tonight is the water issues that affect St. Martin Parish, and of course, we're talking about the Chafly Basin, we're talking about, the Tesh watershed, a lot of issues that touch through St. Martin Parish. And I have to say, St. Martin Parish has done some outstanding things to help the flood. To open up the Joe Day Canal, to allow Cypress Island to drain into Lake Foss Point is super important. I think that's going to lower water levels substantially. They're working with Louisiana DOTD, restore the hydrologic connection between the lower port of Cypress Island and the upper port divided by the Lake Martin Road. There's an old coulee that went through that was closed when they built the road. Well, DOTD realized that we were losing a lot of flood retention, by having the road serve as a dam across the whole system. So they put in a giant culvert. The bottom of it is at sea level. I think it's like 8 by 10. And then with the help of St. Martin Parish, they restored the coulee, which was all grown over, all filled in, had land bridges on it without openings. They went in and removed all the trees, opened up that channel, gave us about 4,000 acres of retention area that we can put 12 feet of water in a flood, which is an enormous help in lowering flood levels. Had we had that in the 016 flood, that would have probably lowered waters in Lafayette at least 1 to 2 feet. So it's very significant, and the cost compared to what Lafayette is spending, Lafayette has spent over $100 million on 2 retention ponds, and all together will not give us more than about 1,000 surface acre feet of retention. So you got 50,000 surface acre retention compared to 1,000. DOTD and the parish all together have spent less than $1 million doing this. The landowners there have been very helpful and cooperative. They've removed a lot of trees in that path. They are funding the culverts that are being replaced, that'll be replaced in the next week or two. So that's all those little things, one here, one there, lowers water levels, and it becomes real significant. And if you look at what's happening in Asheville, in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, the flooding that has taken place, we are one hurricane away from a similar event. So all these things we do to lower water stages makes a big, big difference. And so a lot of thanks to St. Martin Parish for grabbing the bull by the horns, putting a drain in, and to drain to Lake Foss Point below the Keystone Dam is really important, because the water coming out of Cypress Island took about 50 days, 60 days to drain after the 016 flood. With the drain into Lake Foss Point, the couple other things that have been done, and we should be able to reduce the diggings out of that and lower the water levels too. So, but to get the water out of Cypress Island to Lake Foss Point is a 15-mile trip. When the only other way out was the Cypress Island water had to go down to Vermilion, which is all filled in, so the channel capacity is very small. But it has to go 55 miles to the bay. So it's a much shorter trip. The Tesh is a much bigger channel than the Vermilion. The Tesh is 15 feet, about 200 feet. So, and you got the Lowerville Canal that carries it. So it can carry the meal a lot better than the Vermilion. So that's going to be a big help if we get one of these 15, 18-inch rainfall events like happened in Georgia and the Carolinas, which we might be a week away from that happening. So very important that the parish, your parish, with your funding, has accomplished this? You might
Yeah.
share.
Something I want to touch on, this goes back to, I'm in my third and final term. I'm term limited, so I won't be able to run anymore. Which I believe in term limits, so I'm not, I think it's a good thing, but I had the pleasure of serving with 3 parish presidents. And after the 2016 floods, when they came in, that was our first year in office, and it was an eye-opening experience, and we learned the parish very quickly on what was the low spots and what was the high spots. Didn't take very long to figure that out. But a lot of credit goes to Guy Cormier. When Guy was parish president, Guy initiated and put it forth and got it going to where he started working on a regional aspect, trying to get with
He put
other
together a
parishes.
team of all these other parishes, which
Yeah.
we have worked a lot with, It's hard to figure, how does the Boyles Parish tie into us,
Yeah.
But they do. Rapides Parish ties into us.
Yeah,
We're
from
all
Bayou
together.
Catawba.
All the water comes down here through Bayou Catawba.
Well, it's pretty simple. Third of your water, the nation's waters come through through Mississippi. We get 30% of that water that comes through Chafalaya. So we dealing with a lot of water that's coming through our area. But Guy took initiatives and he got things going. He got the ball rolling. Chester came in behind him, and Chester worked and we came up with this idea about we needed to do some dredging projects in St. Martin Parish, and we operate on about a $40 million budget, so we're not a very wealthy
But
parish.
you all passed a local tax
But we
to fund
passed a
that.
local tax, and we were able to pass a 20 mil tax, and we were able to do the Joe Dagg project you discussed earlier, which was, I think, one of the main projects that really helped us a lot. We were able to do the second phase of Joe Dagg Canal. We were able to dredge the lake in Catahoula that hadn't been dredged in years. The lake had silted up to where on the Lidors, when we did the Lidor, we were probably about 5 foot deep in the deepest area of the lake, only maybe 7 foot wide. A lake that used to be 100 foot deep at one time.
Yeah.
So we're able to not restore it back to 100 foot like it originally was, but we're able to open up the lake, widen it up,
Give
bring
it the
that channel back and get
capacity,
it, channel capacity coming in. That, with that being said, that helped us to get water, to get the sheet flow out into Lake Dotrieve and Lake Fawcett Point and move water. And what that does is a lot of people think, well, that helps St. Martin Parish. But
But it helps us too.
actually, it benefits way more people than St. Martin Parish.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we take water, like you said, from all the way from Rapides and Alexandria and stuff, and the water comes to the Catawba. And in Catawba, we got 2 weirs there, 2 500-foot weirs. So when the water's coming over, we don't have control of that water. That water's coming and we gotta
Totally
take
out
it.
of control.
Totally out of control. The gate system on the Catawba, when we can open it up to get water going across and dump it into the basin, depending on what the
It
river's
fills up
level
very
is.
quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So by opening up that lake in Catahoula was a big plus for us. It did benefit a lot. We've noticed now that water drains faster. Mayor Sherman Colette's been there all his life. I've lived there all my life, but Mayor Colette's got a few extra
It's
years on
improved
there.
the water quality.
And Mayor Colette has said that he's never seen the water in recent years travel the speed it's traveling and getting out and moving forward and helping.
And that's affected by the tide, so it goes
Yeah,
up and down with the
exactly.
tide.
So when the tide's coming in, we get back pressure that holds back. But for the most part, it's working, it's doing good. We want to make sure that project lasts and it holds. So right now, we're working with the Tesh Vermilion and with Dredge Vermilion and different organizations. And we're looking at putting a set of locks at the Catawba structure, going into the Barpit Canal, which is the Bayou Canal. And we want to be able to use it for fresh water, to be able to get fresh water. The Tesh Vermilion project is good because what it does, it lets the water flow and it keeps the sediment moving and everything for the Tesh and the Vermilion. But we get all the water that nobody else wants, but we don't get the water we need. So by putting these set of gates in, we get fresh water, constant water coming through. The siltation wouldn't build back up in the lake like
See,
it does
that
now.
whole Lake Dotrieve, Lake Fawcett Point need that fresh water inflow
Yeah.
all the time.
It's good for the ecological system. The
Absolutely.
fisheries are gonna be better.
Absolutely.
Everything's gonna benefit off of it.
Yeah.
So we're working with a project right now through DOTD and the state and federal government with
And
the
you
Corps
see,
engineers.
most of the time, those big weirs that are at 18-foot elevation, no water's coming through.
No.
So that kills the water quality in Bayou Army, Lake Fawcett Point, Lake Dotrieve.
Stagnant.
Very important that you get that open. It
I-
improves fisheries, it improves wildlife, all the wetlands improve,
Right, so we need to make sure that we
So,
can get that.
the last high water, and it's been, I don't know, how long, maybe 7, 8 months ago. We looked at the flow coming down of the Vermilion. We were moving at Surrey Bridge at about 1,500 cubic feet per second during a high water event. The water level was around 9, flood stage is 10. So it's not flood, but it's high water. So we, at 1,500 cubic feet per second going south. And then we wonder, what is the Joe Dag doing? So we measured the flow there, it was at 900 cubic feet per second.
Big difference.
Well, but it means that before you fix Joe Dag, there'd be nothing flowing out of
Right.
there. So that means it's carrying, probably 40% of the flow out. So that's gonna be
Yeah.
very significant, in keeping it from overfilling, flooding. It'll be draining, as it fills.
One thing I can say, being on the council for the past 8 years and going into my final term, that I'm most proud about is that everything St. Martin Parish has done up to this point has benefited more than just us. It's never been about just fixing our
Absolutely.
problems. It's been
Absolutely.
about working as a regional aspect and getting everybody
All
on
connected,
board.
yeah.
And all connected and doing stuff. And when you work as a group and you work as on different parishes coming together, I recently got appointed to the Acadiana Watershed Committee. And I think we 11 or 13 parishes that are involved in it.
It's the Melancon
And the
Tesh
Tauzin. And that watershed is a lot bigger than people think it is. And it affects each and every one of us. And when we do projects,
You see-
and we benefit us, and it benefits the people that are south of us and the north of us, then it's a win-win for
You
everybody.
see, the Melancon Basin is half of Lafayette Parish is in the Melancon
Right.
Basin. It's all that area around, the Lafayette Parish goes all the way to Rain. So Dusson and a lot of Scott and all of that all drains into the Melancon.
Yeah. And most of our water in Upper St. Martin Parish drains to the Bar Pit Canal to Bayami. Everything on Reach Street, pretty much back all the way to Cypress Island, everything drains toward that doesn't drain toward the Tesh, it drains toward that area. So it was an important thing for us to do what we did in Catahoula, get that lake dredged, get it to where it's at. We got some good things coming. We got more projects in St. Martin Parish that we're working on. I want to kind of give a little shout out because when I first got on the council, we didn't have a really good working relationship with DOTD like we have now.
I could say you have a good relationship.
We got a really good relationship, and I want to, I like to recognize some of the guys that in our area that work with us on DOTD.
Brent
'cause,
Domingue?
Yeah, Brent's been good.
Absolutely.
Then there's quite a few others that, that step up to the plate and help us and everything, and willing to sit down and listen to us and talk to
You
us,
see-
and things are working now because we're working together.
That's right. They were rebuilding the highway, and we got a hold of Brent, says, there's an old cooler there y'all need to replace, because it would give us from Lake Martin all the way to the Ruth Canal, that whole swamp area was closed off totally. It's
Yeah.
closed off by the Ruth Canal, it's closed off by the road. So to reestablish that is very, very important. It has a lot of benefits beyond just flood control. The decaying vegetation of that whole 4,000 acres feeds the shrimp and the oysters and the clams and all that. Well, it was all locked. It was all dead. The swamp was dead. Now, you brought the swamp back to life because now it has a rise and fall with the bayou. And they set these culverts and all at sea level. So when the bayou goes up 2 inches, the whole damn swamp goes up 2 inches.
And every time you fix flood issues, you also fix agricultural issues.
Absolutely. It's tied to agriculture, it's tied to
Economic
wildlife
development.
and fisheries, it's
Yes.
all connected.
Because, we talked about it earlier, and I attended a meeting this week with the Canadian Watershed, and it came up inside of there, and we discussed this issue with the Sherrington Canal, with the Jaws, about opening it up. One study says it wouldn't be beneficial enough for flooding issues and stuff. But when we discussed this in the meeting and we talked about it, and it can't be always about just flood, because it has to be about economic development, what it does for the thing. If you'd open up the Jaws project, and we've been hollering and screaming this for 12 years
See,
now.
what's happening
It would
is,
help the fishers, it'd help the shrimp. We had the president of the Shrimp
The sugarcane
Association, the
farmers.
sugarcane
Yeah.
farmers, everybody.
The
The president of the
president of-
Shrimp Association came to a meeting with us and said if we could restore the water flow back to there, what it would bring to that area, we'd get the oysteries back in where they need to be, it would increase the shrimping industry.
affects oysters and
benefit.
shrimping. You see, shrimp are vegetarians. They eat decaying vegetation. Well, that whole system from Alexandria down drains through that one point.
Yeah.
All the decaying leaves and grass and pumping out, rice fields, all of that has that vegetation that's feeding the whole system. And if it's all locked behind dams, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, but to open the jaws would bring it back into Marsh Island and that whole area where those reefs are around South Point and so forth, that's super important, for the whole ecosystem.
And there's a lot of people that just don't understand exactly how the system works, and it's
And-
not their fault. It's just the people, they're not educated on what happens there. But what happens is it benefits St. Martin Parish, it benefits Vols Parish, it benefits
St. Mary
Lafayette
Parish,
Parish,
the
St. Mary,
whole-
everybody,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
water that's moving. As long as water's moving, things work. When you take Mother Nature out of the game,
With the
that's when you
jaws,
hurt things.
you have, the Wax Lake outlet has captured about 70% of flow of the Chafla River. So and it can't, the water from the wax can't go east, it has to go west, and it can only go down the intercoastal. So when it's high, when the Chafla River is high in the spring, you got this flow at 2 or 3 miles an hour. And it's a very significant flow of that fresh water. And adding to that is all the water from Lake Force Point, all the water from St. Martin Parish, from Vols Parish, Rapides Parish is also all going through there. And so it creates a high where the cane farms of Iberia Parish is in during the spring, when you got water in the whole system coming down, the coastal doesn't go up and down with the tide.
Yeah.
So that farms don't drain, It's affecting agriculture, sugar cane, the whole thing, and so, of course, it affects shrimping and a lot of connections, so super important that the jaws be open. It's a $2 million project, it's a really small project. And it could, all the spoil that would come out of it would create marshed alongside of it, create beneficial uses for it, so.
I think for so many years, we've just sat back and let the siltation build up, and we weren't targeting, and I hate to say it, it's not a bad thing, but Baton Rouge and New Orleans, we
Yeah.
always were worried about keeping them open, but we neglecting all the rest of them. We were able to do a small project in Henderson. Mr. Harrell worked on that project with us, and Mr. Dave Dixon and a few others, and we, along with CPRA, and another good program that works really good with us in
Dixie
our area.
Pipeline.
Dixie Pipeline. We went over there, me and Jody Mesh went out there in a boat in the middle of a storm. The gauges weren't moving at all. We're showing that we're carrying more water on one side. We went up there and we actually saw water go north. And it was unbelievable to see because the water was coming in so fast and it was building up that it wasn't traveling south because it was all plugged up and it couldn't get out. Because when they originally did the Dixie, every 500 foot, you're supposed to have a 50-foot gap that was supposed to be kept and maintained. And what happened was the siltation built up and it closed off on both sides. So it actually forced the water back up. Since we've opened up the Dixie and everything and got it back there and established that flow, now the water has never flowed, and we had some big storms and it hasn't gone back up north. Now it's starting to flow. But the problem is, we closed the locks 2 weeks ago, or last week, might have been last week. We closed the locks last week. After closing the locks, 2 days later, we had about a 5-inch rise with no water coming in. And the way that, and so our public works director and I was talking about it. He said, "Where do you think this water's coming from?" I said, "It's simple. It's coming from the Grimmett. The water that's trapped in the Grimmett, between the Grimmett and the Dixie, can't get out. So it takes it longer to get there because it's all plugged up."
See, what you had, the lower Henderson at about 7 feet, but the Grimmett was almost at 16.
Right, right. So,
All of that's coming through.
so we did propose another project through CPRA that we're working on, and we had some good news on it a while back, I think
Yeah.
about a few weeks ago, saying that it looks like the funding's there for the project and we'll be able to get this project started.
You
where-
got a dam with the High Line,
Yeah,
and I think when they built the High Line, they built it with trucks.
yeah.
So they actually closed.
Build the
it.
road.
They built the road, yeah.
So but the idea is to open up those gaps and create gaps and
And see, very important when they did that, and we went and looked at that, they put the openings where the natural bayous were.
yeah,
So they reconnected those natural bayous. That's super important because it's restoring those bayous flow. If you just put a cut and there's no place for it to go, it'll fill up real quickly. But restoring the bayous have a gradient and they flow and of course they have, that's a whole ecosystem themselves, the bayous, I mean,
the problem when you stop up that bayou and you don't provide fresh water going through it, and you close it off, the water levels have to get high enough to be able to move that water from them bayous to get over the spoil.
Yep.
Problem is, when we're moving that up, it's late winter, after winter time, late rise in the water. When that water comes up, we have all the dead leaves and everything from the winter time, and all that builds up, and it pulls all oxygen out of the
Water
water.
quality is a big issue.
Water quality
yeah.
is terrible at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah. And if you, right now, the shelf line's at 3.5, and so it'd be good if Henderson would go to 3.5, because you'd kill a lot of that vegetation.
You know, there's a lot of people that's complaining about the drawdown. Some people complain that we're holding too much water. Some people's complaining that we need more water.
People worrying about getting the tour boats around too.
Yeah, and you know, the touring industry is a big part of St. Martin Parish, and look, they built some nice facilities and invested a lot of money and stuff and everything. But most of those boat tours that they've dredged their slips and all to be able to make sure that they can operate. But I can remember as a young boy going on the levee with my grandfather, and we put out dip nets, put 50 dip nets out. And we get to the end, and he had a little ice chest he'd make me carry. He'd drink his beer. I'd drink my pop. When we were finished, we'd go back to the beginning. I'm talking about a couple hours later, and we'd raise them 50 nets, and we'd come back home with 2 sacks of crawfish. And that was on the side of the
See, I
levee, and
grew up
that's
on-
not there
I grew up
anymore.
on the levee, and we'd take a little 25-foot medicine, and you'd put one guy standing right on the edge of the water, and the other guy walk us a circle around, and you'd have 3 sacks of crawfish.
Yeah, but there was no locks back then. The locks
No.
weren't put in. That was before the interstate system and all.
Well, it was before
and-
they built the inside guide levee.
Yeah.
See, that
Yeah.
inside guide levee was finished in 48, and that changed Henderson a lot.
You know, that Grimmy Canal project that we talked about, the second phase of doing that project, we also have another phase in there where it would put a lock system that would get water coming through the Chafalaya that would come directly off the river. And,
There were
and
Cross Springs and Old
yeah,
Bayacatabla.
put the water directly back and let it flow naturally like it used to.
See, that would turn Henderson into a fishing paradise, improve that, but it will also allow flood water to get out.
But
Right now, you can't hardly get the flood water out.
no, because it's stuck there. But it's not only Henderson, because let me tell you, Henderson, when it leaves there, when it gets to those locks, those guys in Catahoula, those guys in Bow Bayou and down, man, they catch all the bad stuff that's coming through. But, and it's bad when it leaves us because of the situation it's in, but it's even worse when it gets to them.
Really?
So you have a lot of, it gets pretty bad around that area. So if you had fresh water moving where you could allow the fresh water to get there.
Long and Lake Long and all that,
Yeah,
that water comes through that old canal, and that's dead water.
yeah. So that, we've got some good projects on the board, we've done some good stuff, and I think there's more to come. But, we've been
wonder-
fortunate, say more. We've gotten our bang for our buck.
Yeah, how does the Acadiana watershed plug into this? I mean, right now, we have no funding, right?
No, there's no funding yet for Acadiana Watershed. They're still operating off of the previous administration. They are looking at sources of funding for it. They have some good projects. They got good ideas. It's a regional aspect. That's the only way you can do business these days. If you don't do it as a regional group and everybody tries to do their projects, look, I've been on the winning side, I've been on the losing side. And it's not good to sit on the losing side because, you know, we had an issue with the spoil banks in St. Martin Parish and Cypress Island, and, you know, we've never seen the modeling to see exactly how it would have worked and all, and I think, you know, but that administration is no longer there, so, and the new administration has reached out and tried to work with us and everything, so we are all getting back on the same page.
Kind of mending those fences.
Manning those fences. And you know, you can't hold a grudge when you're dealing with people's lives and the public and everything, because at the end of the day, our job as council members and parish presidents and police jury associations is we have to put the people first. And we have to do the projects that are gonna be beneficial and the ones that are gonna be, you're gonna get your most bang from your bucks. And a lot of these projects need to start in the south. They need to start further down at the bottom. You gotta open the bottom up if you want the top to drain. And I think working on a regional aspect with this Acadiana watershed, I think we got some good people. We just elected our board members. Jacob Landry, the new state representative, is in there. Jacob, he's a young, aggressive guy. He's really involved. He looks like he wants to take the bull by the horns and try to get something going.
He has a pretty good understanding of the whole area, yeah.
He does. He grew up around the Delcom area and stuff, so he understands. He knows what flooding's about because he's shared it and stuff. And, and right now we're working on trying to save the state gauges to be able to keep our gauge project, you know, because there's some funding that's gonna be short for the gauges. Jacob took the lead on it, and he's working with you and try to make sure we can secure those gauges, because every gauge is important, because, they asked us at each parish level to rate out gauges, to grade them from your most
Yeah. right.
beneficial to your least beneficial. And in San Juan Parish, we have 5 of them, and we use every gauge every day.
Y'all have a new gauge at the new landing.
Yeah,
That's real important there.
yeah, that is,
And they'll did a wonderful job with that landing.
yeah.
That's
They invested some money into that, and
Yeah, my scouts planted
yeah.
all those trees around
yeah.
it. They're looking great. So Cory, the spoil bank project is in your district, isn't it?
Actually, no, it's not.
It's not really, okay.
No, my district, like I said, it borders probably about 75% of the city of Breaux Bridge.
Okay,
So yeah, that's on a totally different district.
yeah, right.
Do see some drainage issues in District 6. I mean, albeit on a much smaller scale compared to some of the more rural areas of the parish. But like Chris said, it all starts from the small villages, the towns,
Sure.
the cities we have in the parish. and
So
then,
you go all the way to
spreading out.
Ornerville?
No, I actually stay right, I go about, on Enns Broussard, probably about 3 or 4 miles past Pochette Bridge Road.
Okay, so you go above I-10 though?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay,
I do.
there's a big solar farm coming there.
Okay.
It's on the Shopwee property. It's in Lafayette Parish.
Okay,
But
gotcha,
it's
gotcha.
right, it can be right next to you,
Yeah, yeah,
North of I-10, west of Breaux Bridge,
gotcha, yeah.
That's all the Shopwee Game
Yeah.
property,
And touching on what Chris said, to give some kudos to the DOT as well, Louisiana DOT. I've had a couple of meetings attended a couple of meetings with them, Chris and myself and a couple of other council members, and they have, from what I've seen now versus what I've heard about in the past, and not, casting stones, the guys now, they're very proactive. And one of the first meetings we had not long after we all got sworn in, these guys, we came with questions, and some of them, before we would even ask the questions, they were already providing answers. So big props to those guys. Is everything always gonna be perfect with them or with us? No, it's human
sure,
nature, it is what
right.
it is, but they're more accessible, in my opinion, and willing to work with us, and not just us, every other parish as well. And working with neighboring parishes is a big part of what Chris was touching on, and I'm trying to absorb as much as I can while you and he are speaking, but that's a big deal.
Sure,
It's not an us
absolutely.
against them, it's a we against, the water. It's a us against the drainage kind of thing. And that's a big, crucial talking point for us, especially, like you mentioned, the spoil banks and, Bayou Teche.
Sure.
They call it Vermilion River, I still say Bayou Vermilion, but that's
Yeah.
just, so yeah, it's moving fresh water is key. It's eventually, if it's not moving, it's stagnant. And let's be honest, it becomes unhealthy after a while for everything, for humans and wildlife, so,
Sure. It's all connected.
yes.
Chris, you on that Shafly Basin Master Plan, kind of share with us where that's going, what y'all looking at, who's funding it, and does it have any funds, and what's
Yeah.
some of the ideas that's floating about that would improve the basin?
I was fortunate in the last governor's administration to sit on the Chapelari Basin Task Force. And on that task force were members I think 35 people that made up the group, from people that had voting rights to people that were just there to be able to give us benefits of their knowledge of what they had and
Moral
what and stuff.
support.
Moral support. Well, that and engineers, a lot of engineers and stuff. But we ended up coming up with some good projects, some good ideas. And I was kind of worried when the new administration came in to see if that was going to stay in play. But the governor identified that there's an issue, there's a problem. He wants to get it fixed. He wants to do what's right by it. And Governor Landry implemented the Chafly Basin Master Plan. And it's going to be managed under CPRA. And I'm one of, I think we 13 that actually have voting rights as a steering committee, that we're going to work through CPRA to come up with some ideas on some plans that we had worked on and suggestions that came about. And The first meeting we had was basically we broke into groups and we had discussions on what's the problems are. How do we identify those problems? What are the benefits from those problems? And I think what we want to do is we want to try to find the biggest projects we can get, that we can get the most most bang for our buck. Same thing we did in St. Mary's Parish. But I think we've narrowed it down to some issues that we have inside the basin. A lot of problems with siltation. Everything in the basin, the problems start with siltation, with small banks and gaps and cuts that need to be done. We've proven that those projects work. CPRA is very, very, very involved in the basin program. And I say this because we had some good projects that worked, and then we had coon trap, and we had a few projects that didn't work. And we saw what the difference was and what it took to get them repaired. So the guys that are there are got a good idea of what needs to be done, what we're gonna do. I'm pretty excited to sit on that thing, because I think we're gonna see a lot of good things come out of it. Hopefully, it's not something that lasts us 12 years. Hopefully, we start seeing benefits from it and we get projects moving within the next few years. I'm hoping this is what happens.
All over the basin, you have these dead zones.
Yeah.
I mean, they are, somebody puts a canal here, somebody puts a pipeline there, somebody puts a dam there. And so you have a big area that doesn't rise and fall with the river, doesn't rise and fall with the tide. The basin is, most of this, half of the year, it's a floodway. But the other half of the year, it's a tidal system. And with the tide, you have shrimp coming in, you have fish coming in, and the rise or the fall of the tide affects the wetlands. And, you know, if an area is just all closed in, it can't rise and fall of the tide, it's no longer wetland. So you lose all the wetland plants and fish. And if you can look at, there's a computer model that's set up by Dr. Paul Kemp on the hydrology of the whole basin. He looked at the Baikakodra swamp, you know, I mean, that's by Catahoula.
Right.
On that. You have water levels, 6 different levels.
Well-
In one spot, you got water levels, 6 different levels. There's no interconnection.
Well, just look at Bull Bayou. That used to be the biggest swamp in the basin. Now it's narrowed down to a small channel.
That's right, yeah.
Ain't much left to
Yeah,
it anymore.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah.
And that was all created by small banks and gaps not being maintained and just natural barriers that closed up and that went away. They're still there. We just need to find them, locate them,
And there's
open
a
them up and
term
restore the
they
flow.
use, Dr. Kemp's in agreement with that, rewilding. As you go, these old bayous, a lot of them, they're not filled in because they've been closed off.
Right.
What's the Texaco Barge Canal, that comes in, you know, from the river, it goes all the way down to, what it comes out right there at what's the landing between Sandy Cove and Buffalo Cove, you know,
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking
yeah.
about.
It comes in, that's about 8 or 9 miles.
Yeah.
Well, there's one of the engineering firms back in the, you know, in the 90s, put a drilling barge about 4 miles from the river, about halfway between the river and the levee, on the south side of, by Crookshank. And there's about a mile L canal. And they used the water level from Butler Rose. So they put the rig in December, it was high water. In July, you could walk to the rig. Well, the rig was costing about $60,000 to $70,000 a day, and it was high and dry. And they had finished the well, it was a dry hole. So they had to pump water into Crookshank and refloat it. Well, they put a barge dam on the river, and they put a dam on near the levee, and they had the biggest pumps on earth, and they pumped for 2 weeks and didn't raise it an inch. Well, they realized that 5 or 6 bayous that came across, $400 bayou, alligator bayous, a bunch of them came across. So they dammed, they put like 12 dams, the bayous, and then they could get that barge out. Well, that was an emergency permit that they had 90 days to take the dams out. Now that affected Buffalo Cove, Cocodrie Swamp, that affected the whole damn area. And
Not all of them will
the
open back up.
engineering firm wrote a letter to the Corps that said they had removed the dams.
They didn't.
No, they're still there today.
Yeah.
And that messed up water quality, screwed up the flow of those bayous into that whole swamp. I mean, the fishermen couldn't get to the swamp anymore, the dams in the way, and, the engineering firm, had the crawfish suit, so the engineering firm decided, well, we're gonna settle this. Their insurance company says, you wrote a letter to the Corps saying you took these dams out, and you haven't. That's fraud. We don't cover fraud. So that firm had to pay off and, make a settlement with the crawfishermen. That's the first part of that suit that they won, but the dams are still there.
Yeah, nothing was
Now,
accomplished right there, was it?
I could go with a bucket dredge and remove all those dams probably in a day. Restore that flow. And with that flow, it's access, it's water quality, it's all those things all put together. So an example of, how do you fix the basin? You rewound the natural bayous.
You put Mother Nature back in charge.
That's right. And allow the floodwaters to go through, allow the rise and fall of the tide.
Yeah.
And the rise and fall, shrimp breed in that basin. But they gotta get into the swamp.
Yeah.
I was camping with my scouts on a sandbar over there at 6 Mile Lake. And they had a net and they're fooling around and at night they're playing in the shallow water, then run a net through and they'd have a handful of shrimp. I thought that's river shrimp, It wasn't river shrimp, it's white shrimp.
Good job.
Good shrimp, yeah. That's actually breeding in the basin, So to restore that access for fish and water movement, I think that's the key to fixing it. And if you restore natural if you put a cut in and it just flows through the swamp, the current stops once it gets into the swamp, so
Right.
it'll just fill it in. But if it goes into a bayou, the bayou has a gradient. It improves water quality in the swamp. The curves in the bayou are vital to water quality.
Filters
Because
the water.
as that tide movement or current occurs, the oxygen-rich surface water, when it hits the curve and you get all that spiraling and all that turbulence around a curve, the oxygen-rich surface water goes to the bottom where the clams and grubs and worms live. That never happens in a canal.
No.
That's why a canal is an ecological dead zone. And it's dominated by canals. So if we could restore the natural bayous, you restore a lot of the basin. And it's area by area, Dead Man's Bayou has levees that are 40 foot high on the front of it off the Phillips,
Well, right there in Bubayi, when you get to Bubayi, you got a spall bank that's 30 foot high and the levee's 26. So it's not hard to figure out where the water goes. I was fortunate. I knew a good bit about the basin. I hunt and fish there all my life and everything, but there was areas of the basin that I wasn't real familiar with, and stuff. And when I first got elected, I got to be good friends with people around the Catahoula area that were crawfishermen.
Yeah, they knew it,
Banby Avenue, Shane,
yeah.
Jody, Mike, all these guys took me out in boats and said, you want to see the problem, we'll take you to where the problem's at. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if everybody, I wish we could get every elected official on the state and federal level out there to see what the issues are. And you made a comment a while ago, and a lot of that is so true because it's not big projects that we're talking about 5 or 6 years to do. I'm talking about things that could be done in 5 or 6 days that could get things done.
That's right, that's right.
And it's so
I mean,
simple.
I could go take out all those dams on Crookshank. I think there's 10 of them. You could take them all out in a day with a good backhoe and a barge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and restore all the swamps that are connected to it,
Yeah, and we talk about the basin a lot around St. Martin Parish because it's part of our parish and we surrounded by a lot of water, and then we got a forgotten area that we forget sometimes. People forget about, but we don't forget about it, but people do because we have a lower St. Martin Parish. And Lower St. Martin Parish, I mean, they, you know, they deal with this water and all this stuff all the time, and then the flooding issues. And I just wanna take a moment to recognize those people and keep them in our prayers and thoughts, because a lot of people don't realize when we think St. Martin Parish, well, we didn't have any effects from the storm. And
Well,
Bell
Lower St.
Rivers,
Martin did, yeah.
Bell Rivers, Stevensville,
St.
those
Martin
people stayed out of electricity for a good
Usually
while.
catches the brunt of it.
Yeah, they had a lot of flooding issues over there. We had a couple of houses, roofs came off of. There was some 100-mile-an-hour winds that these people went through, and they went through a traumatic experience. So I'd ask that we, you know, keep Lower St. Martin Parish in our prayers and thoughts, and wish them the best going forward. These people are listen, they're gonna come back. They always do.
Did you have a couple of issues that are coming up for vote, that the council is?
Yeah, we're gonna have, we have 7 villages coming up in the November ballot. That's gonna be on the same time as the presidential election. Very important villages for St. Martin Parish, some of them with
Renewals.
drainage. Renewals, every one of them is a renewal.
Renewals.
No new taxes. And so what the council did back in June, our tax assessor, Mr. Tauzin, came and presented to the council what, because we're in a reassessment this year. So if we would had a full meal, just for instance, we had a meal that was a full meal, but we're only collecting 3.6 on it for the last 10 years, for the past 10 years, you were paying a set rate.
Yeah.
Well, even if we still continue to collect 3.6, you're gonna pay more money,
Yeah.
because the reassessment property values went up across the board. So what we did is we looked at it, and according to Todd's recommendation, the council passed an ordinance, and what we did is we reduced those rates from 3.6 to like a 3.4 or 3.5, to where you're gonna pay the same exact money that you paid for the last 10 years. So we actually rolled the millage back where we can continue to operate, continue to provide our services, but at no additional expense to the
Right.
taxpayer.
And you've had growth in real estate values, I
Right.
guess, in Henderson,
This-
Broussard.
Yeah, Cecilia area, a lot of people don't realize it, but the Cecilia Warrenville area has, the Cecilia primary is our largest school in the parish right now.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of growth, a lot of development going on in that area there, the parish, the north end of the parish, so, St. Martin is growing, and we're doing well and stuff, but at the same time, we wanna be conservative, we wanna be responsible with the taxpayers' money. We don't want you to pay more than you paid before, we want you to pay the same thing and get a benefit. But we were also able to look at the library millage that's coming up for renewal, that one will be on the December ballot. And when we looked at it, they had a pretty good fund balance in there that they were able to operate on, and it built up over the years. So they do collect another millage already that was passed about 4 years ago, was renewed. And on that millage, we split it in half to where we used some of it for the library, and half of it went for cost of buildings, for the judicial funds and different things for the courthouse, the jail. Well, this millage right here, we were able to do a 70-30 split, to where the libraries won't miss a beat. They can operate and be fully funded, and be able to continue to do everything they're doing now with the fund balance they carried in the 2 millages. But on the 70% that we're gonna take out of it, we are looking at building a $40 million jail in St. Martin Parish. Our jail's capacity is 180 at the most.
And that's gonna be near the St. John Plantation.
Right, we're looking at doing something where the sheriff's shooting range is in that area. We
Yeah.
haven't locked down a piece of property. We hired a firm to come in to give us some ideas, to work with us. I do sit on the jail committee, and we've had several meetings, and our old parish president, Mr. Chester
Is
Cedars,
sheriff helping with that?
well, he's the attorney for the sheriff's office now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he took it as a part-time job, but with Chester, there's no part-time, everything is full-time.
Yeah.
So Chester's very familiar with the jail, works for the
Yeah,
DA's
sure.
officers, parish president stuff. So we see a need for it. We spend about $1 million a year in excess of what we spend on top of the jail, just keeping up with it because it's falling apart. Life expectancy on a jail is not supposed to be as 50, 60 years. It's just,
And there's so many improvements have been
Right.
made to those jails.
yeah. So instead of, putting money into that, we still be able to
And I
get,
think it's great to put it out in the country
right,
and have
get it
some
out the
outdoor-
town and,
Out
yeah.
of the town, have some outdoor activities for them.
Right, right. And then Sheriff Bro is really, really compassionate when it comes to the prisoners and making sure that he doesn't just want to do an incarceration, he wants to do a rehabilitation program.
That's so
So
important.
it is. In today's world, it is. So,
Yeah.
because we want those people because just because you messed up at some point in your time doesn't mean that you should pay for it the rest of your life. And he's looking at.
Work on them, getting their
Right.
GEDs, getting their
They're more
education,
productive when you can
learning
put them
a
back in
trade.
society and they become a member of society and
Sure.
they pull in the wagon instead of sitting in the back of it. So he's got some good ideas, he's got some good thoughts and everything. So, but at the end of the day, if we can successfully pass all our millages and get them all done, you're gonna pay the same money you paid before, you're gonna get the same services you paid before the last 10 years, and there's a chance that we get a
It's
$40
so
million
important,
jail.
You know, I mean, I think to keep someone in jail in Louisiana is around 38,000 a year.
Yeah,
Think about it, you could send them to Tulane.
yeah,
Really?
sure good.
It's so important that we, as much as possible, rehabilitate, you know, to get them a high school diploma, get them, you know,
And we have a very,
skill.
very strong, very well-respected sheriff,
Yeah.
Sheriff Beckett, bro, and he's extremely proactive when it comes to that. He's, like Chris said, he has a lot of compassion on helping
'Cause
those
you-
that
you
want to
turn
be
these
helped and
guys
those that can't.
around, they
Yeah,
become
and can be
productive
helped.
members of society instead of going back to jail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're a product of your environment. So whatever, you know, whatever you learn inside of there, if you go to jail and it's just about incarceration, it's not about rehabilitation, you're not getting anything out of that.
Oh, y'all having a special tax for that?
What we did, we took the library millage,
Yeah.
and we divided it, 70% is gonna go to a new jail construction, and 30% is gonna go to the library, at the reduced rate of the reapportionment to where you're gonna pay the same amount of money.
That's great.
So
That's
we
great.
didn't create a new tax, we didn't add a new tax.
And
We
you're
were able to-
rebuilding the courthouse too?
Redoing the roof on the courthouse. The courthouse needed some updating, some modific, but we had money set aside to do that. We've been putting aside, and we finally getting the roof replaced on it, and we're gonna do some cosmetics to it and fix up the outside. It's an old
Beautiful.
building.
Beautiful
Yeah,
building.
old building, beautiful building, it needs a little attention right now. We're making sure we're getting that done.
That's great.
And those millages are very important for the sustainability of the budget for our parish. I mean,
Sure.
we're
Yeah.
we're a rural parish, and we're not, I guess you can say we're kind of a somewhat relatively poor parish with the budget we operate on, $38 to $40 million a year. And again, to stress, those millages, it's not an increase, it's actually gonna be a wash with the reassessment versus the rollback we did on some of the millages. And, you know, to keep the sustainability of the services provided by the parish, those are very important.
You on there? Can we help you? Hello?
Hello?
I don't know what happened to it.
He'll call back.
We'll come back.
But yeah, those millages are very key for operating the parish.
Y'all keeping track of the crawfish season? That was the worst they've had. I mean,
Yeah.
I've talked to people who have fished 50 years and they said it's the worst they've ever had.
Yeah.
And last year they had a good season. But this year, the guy run 300 traps and catch 4 sacks of crawfish.
And a lot of our basin crawfish went to restocking ponds and stuff this year.
You on the air? Can we help you? Oh, why the phone is not working? Hopefully.
Try
it'll come
calling back.
Yeah. But, you know, crawfish affects a lot of people in St. Martin Parish.
It does.
And,
It's a big industry for us.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's kind of like sugarcane, you know, it's the foundation of the economy. That's what multiplies. It's not doctors and lawyers and used car salesmen that make the economy run. It's the farmer, it's the guy bringing in forestry products, the guy bringing in fish, bringing in crawfish,
Yeah.
whatever, you know. You on air? And why the phone's not working? So, but crawfish have been very, very important to the economy of, you know, St. Martin Parish and Louisiana, because that's what multiplies, you know.
We basically are a residential agricultural based parish, if you stop and think about it.
Sugarcane.
Sugarcane is our
still got
biggest
some
crop.
rice.
Yeah, we still got a few rice, soybean fields. Seafood industry is a lot bigger than people give us credit for, because we still have probably the wild crawfish, I mean, we still have the biggest
Well,
area
you
of
have
wild
a
crawfish.
big catfish operation
We
right
got a
there in
major
Henderson.
catfish operation with Gidger's Catfish and Processes. Processes actually owns, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's called Ocean Harvest.
Yeah.
And they ship seafood worldwide, all over the place. They furnish most of the casinos. Guy started that business, Mr. Bobby Guidry, started that skinning catfish under a tree in Henderson, and just had an idea and hard worker, and he just went to work and he built that business from the ground up, and look where it's at today. It's one of the biggest plants
And,
around.
Pat's has revived.
Patch is back in business. Harvey and them are up and running. They got through the tornadoes, and town of Henderson was hit pretty hard. It was in pretty
yeah.
bad shape. Mayor Colette and those guys, hard workers, went back out there, got in the community, were able to get some assistance to get some
Built the
things
new
done.
city hall.
Built a new city hall there. They got they expanding on their sewer plants, from what I understand. There's new business locating. They incorporated there as Crawford Town USA and Cajun Palms, which is now Margaritaville. But Sherman's been able to grow that thing, and he's
done a fabulous job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sherman's an old mayor from way back. He understands the situation. He knows how to grow the city. He's good people.
Yeah, and he's gone, like, building that landing.
Yeah.
That was a great thing for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about landings and stuff. Something I want to just bring up right now. St. Martin Land Company. I built a relationship with some of the guys on St. Martin Land Company. I was doing work for him and stuff, and I got to know the president over there. And one day we were sitting down and we were talking, and he was talking about Dick Davis Campground. And Dick Davis Campground, out there, it belongs to St. Martin Land Company, owns it. But they did a lease to the parish, and we pay $1 a year for like 50
Yeah.
years or whatever. So I told Nick, the guy president, I said, listen, I went to Baton Rouge a few years ago and tried to get some money to do a bulkhead because we needed to bulkhead this.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get it because we didn't own the property through Parks and Recreation. So when I told him that, he said, I don't know why we never gave you the property. So this Tuesday night, it's on the agenda that we're gonna pass an ordinance that their board has agreed to give us the property. So they're gonna donate the property to Dick Davis Campground.
Can't
St.
beat
Martin
the
Parish
price,
government.
huh?
Can't beat the price. So
Well,
we'll
well,
be,
it's wonderful they're
then
doing
we'll
that.
be able to get maybe some grants to do some more work there. We just did a bunch of work to it and upgraded and stuff, so, just kudos to St. Martin Land Company for what they did.
That's great.
And, recognizing, that,
Where is that located?
it's in Butler Rose. It's
Oh,
almost
yeah,
dead
sure,
center of
yeah.
Herman Dupuy Road,
Right,
right off
yeah.
of Herman Dupuy.
Yeah, it's right on the bayou there.
Right on the water
Yeah.
side, yep. So,
That's a neat little campground.
Yeah,
And
so-
boy, they have so many campers, wow.
I
They're all
remember-
looking
yeah.
for a place to park them.
I'm 57 years old. I remember when I was a young boy, we used to go there. They had a Tattoo Scranch had a camp, and then the next camp was 3 miles down. And now it's a lot. A lot of people have moved there and lived there and retired in their community, and they built up a lot of good people living out there, and a lot of good
Oh, yeah.
resources to
Yeah.
benefit off of there. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
But St. Martin Parish, all in all, is doing pretty good. Y'all building a new recreation center in Cecilia?
what we did in Cecilia, we added, when we did that 20 mil to do the stuff, 5 million of that money we used for Parks and Recreation. We gave the city of St. Martinville, we gave the city of Burbridge, the village of Parks, the town of Anderson. They all got money off of these proceeds because it was a parish-wide millage. And we were able to take money and put it in Catahoula, and we spent about $1 million in Catahoula. And we built the Civic Center in Catahoula. We were able to upgrade the baseball fields. We did a lot of work in Catahoula, and it's really nice. But we were able to take that same money we had and put money into Cecilia Park. And we spent close to $3 million in Cecilia. We bought the old church building that was next to it that had been vacated, and we updated that. We built the Civic Center there.
You built the Civic Center at Cade, that's real nice.
Right, the Civic Center in Key, that was passed on a special tax that when Thomas Nelson was there back in the day that they passed. Now that's a really, really nice facility, but we've upgraded our parks and done a bunch of work in the parish in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So, and every council member in their districts and in the city districts and in the Burbridge district and all had a lot to do with that and getting those fundings, as said.
So Cory, you have any of the projects in your district, in the Burbridge area?
Just a couple of road projects that's on the books that's upcoming, and that a lot of the road projects are kind of at a standstill right now simply because of grinding season.
Yeah,
The
right.
cane, they're hauling cane out on the highways, and that's not a good mixture when you're working on roads and repairing
Right,
roads
yeah.
and whatnot.
They
when you
did a
have,
real good job with that Lake Martin Road.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
real
yeah.
smooth, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We almost completed, we got about 4 more roads left to do on our first round of projects, and we're gonna start another round of projects next year on roads, parish roads. One of the roads that split me and Cory's district is Melancon Extension.
Oh, yeah.
From the roundabouts to the Mack dealership.
Yeah.
That road was scheduled to have been should have gotten done by now, but Grand Point Highway, state came in and started blacktop in Grand Point. So with the closure of Anns Broussard, we didn't wanna start that road project at the same time as
Yeah,
that one going.
yeah.
So we delayed it, and we're gonna do the project early January, sometimes around when grounding's finished and the sugar cane's all
We-
out.
Yeah, we're at the tail end of our program, we're gonna have, so, Cory, thank you a lot for being here.
Yes,
And
pleasure.
Chris, thank you so much, and you all will be congratulated for doing a fantastic job with all these issues, your parish and all the improvements in it, the Shafly Basin and our flood issues. Y'all have helped a lot of it is because of your leadership, and you.
Well, it's
you know,
teamwork.
your
It takes a
understanding.
team.
Yep, right, we
Well,
need to all pull
From
together.
top to bottom, it takes a team.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's
Not
right.
one man can do this by himself. It takes
No,
everybody to
Right.
be part of it.
So, again, thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for having us on, Mr. Howard. I
Right.
appreciate it
Appreciate
anytime.
it.
Yep.